Okay. Everyone, welcome back to Breslov Efrat here at Shirat. Dovid, Baruch Hashem, in our beautiful Likutey Halachos Shirat we have going so nicely, Baruch Hashem. Today is Reb Noson's yard site. It's Asar B'Tevis, Baruch Hashem, and where would we be without Reb Noson? I guess everyone here that's part of this group knows, and they see the beautiful lessons that Reb Noson gives us all the time, and how he helps us to connect to the Rabbeinu Shalom and to stay sane in this crazy world, in this turbulent world that we're in. Wow. I'm telling you, people contact me and they tell me story. I can't believe what's going on. I'm telling you, it's a pachad otzim what's going on out there. Really. The things that people are dealing with, I never, without this, with these people wouldn't contact, I was like, I can't get over it. And then how many times people say, wow, thank you for these lessons. They didn't understand. People don't understand. I could look at my tzitzit and I could connect to Hashem. Tzitzit, what is this? And then this is what we're learning. And this is what the tzaddik always does for us. So here we go. Let's look inside. Likutey Halachos. We're in Hilchos Tzitzit Halacha Gimel. Today we're up to letter Chaf Beis, right? 22. Yeah. 22. So here we have. So let's discuss a concept that we know there's such a thing called the chut hameshuleshes, right? There's when you have the Chazal teach us that there's a chut hameshuleshes that has to be, if you take a string and you make it by 3, it becomes very, very strong and it can't be broken. It can't be broken. So we're going to see the 3 is really Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. The 3 is really the Sholosh Regolim. Right? We're going to see about this idea now. Rebbe says today, Rav Noson brings down the Gemara Menachos. He says, "Ve'ein chulya pachas misholish." So what is a chulya? It's a kavutza of karichos, right? A chulya is a kavutza, a group of windings, of bindings. Okay, and we know that has to be. It can't be less than 3. So where does this go? Because really the Ikar Kedusha, the Ikar Kesha of Kedusha is really Yaakov Avinu. Why Yaakov Avinu? Because we know that Yaakov Avinu is the Midah of Tferes, right? Yaakov Avinu is Tferes, and Yaakov Avinu is made of Chesed and Gevura. Yaakov Avinu's grandfather is Avram Avinu, is Chesed. His father is Yitzchak Avinu, is Gevura. And together, he becomes Tferes, and that's why Yaakov Avinu was able to have the Shiftei Kah coming from him. The Shiftei Kah, the holy tribes came from Yaakov Avinu. And of course, Yehuda came from them, and we were waiting for Mashiach. Tzidkenu, Emetz Hashem. All the things are coming from Yaakov. Okay, makes sense? Any questions on that? That's good. So, okay. Shul Bechinas HaChut HaMeshulish. He's the 3rd string. He's the Chut HaMeshulish. He'll never be disconnected. It can't be broken. It can't be severed. Because when you take 3, and that's why Chazal always mention Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov together. In our Shmai Nesra, we started like Avram, like Yitzchak, like Yaakov. We're never going to start off and just mention one without the other. Never. We're always going to mention the 3 together because that's the Chut HaMeshulashes. That's the 3, and it can never be broken. V'hu kolo mikol hashloisha avos sheim b'chinas shlolish regalim. As we learned, the 3 holidays, the 3 main holidays. We had Bilam, right? And his donkey told him, why are you hitting me sholosh regalim? Remember that? Mm-hmm. Why are you hitting me sholosh regalim? Remember? Just to remind ourselves a few nice things, right? The donkey told him, the piasan, the donkey told him, why are you hitting me sholosh regalim? It wasn't Stam he said Shalosh Regalim. Rav Noson teaches it wasn't Stam that the donkey said Shalosh Regalim. He was telling him, you idiot, you're hitting me, but so long as Klal Yisrael has the Shalosh Regalim, they have Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, you can't do anything to them. They're untouchable. Because they have that's the Chut HaMeshulashes. There can never be a nata. It can't be severed. It can't be broken. The donkey knew that. Unbelievable, right? The donkey said that. Fascinating. V'hu bechinas anaf eitz avos ve'ein avos pachos misholosh. Now, so what's the anaf eitz avos? That's talking about the hadas, the hadasim, right? The hadas, because again, we have the sholosh regalim, right? And this ein avos pachis misholosh. What does that mean? That you always have to have at least three. The hadas has to be misholosh. Right? In other words, you have to see if the roiv of the hadas has to be three. To 3 leaves. Unbelievable. I'm telling you, I remember when I was a kid, we used to go to get the Daled Minim, and they had buckets and buckets and buckets of Hadassim, and we had to go through all of them, and to find a Hadas that was Meshulish was like a miracle. I'm telling you, it was like a miracle. Today, you get the thing, it says Aleph plus, Aleph plus plus. They're all Meshulish. Unbelievable. What we have today is unbelievable. I'm telling you, I used to go through those buckets for hours and hours trying to find them. Unbelievable. We have no idea what Chasadim Hashem does for us today. We have no idea. I'm telling you, even this thing that they package these Hadassim, fascinating. Do you remember, David? Do you remember ever going back?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't do anything when I was young.
Okay. Baruch Hashem, you're doing now, and you get to reap the benefits of the new system.
I thought these things grew in cellophane packages. I didn't know they. I learned from Sasha that they grow on trees.
Wow. Okay, so look, let's see now. Let's see. So we have the 3 holidays: Pesach, Shavuos, and Sukkot. Sukkot is the 3rd holiday, right? That's the segment, the way they go. Sukkot, Pesach is Nisan. Nisan starts off the holiday season, right? And you have Pesach is the first one, Shavuos is the second one after the 49 days, after the Sfira, right? And then we have the Sukkot after the Yemein Nahar. Okay, here we go. Now it says, Bechinas Yaakov, and we know that Sukkot is Keneged Yaakov Avinu. Sukkot is the whole idea of Simcha. Yaakov Avinu, the whole idea of Yaakov Avinu was Simcha, Mamish. Why was Yaakov Avinu Simcha? Because Yaakov Avinu had children that were all holy, that were all special. He had his problems with his kids, of course, so who doesn't, right? Who could tell you that they don't have no trouble with their children? Who could tell you that, right? Who could say that? Look at Yaakov Avinu, right? I mean, look at the trouble he had. These were all tzaddikim. Could you imagine? These were all, the Torah says that these were all kulam kiddushim. These were all tzaddik. And look at the trouble Yaakov Avinu had. So anyone that tells you their kids are perfect, they have no problems, they're mamash alayah.
And Abraham, Yitzhak, and David.
No, of course, but I'm just saying, even Yaakov Avinu, look at the trouble he had with his children. Unbelievable. But they were all tzaddikim. And that's what we have to, the amich kulam tzaddikim. We have to remember that. All of us, we're all tzaddikim in some way, shape, or form. And that's what we have to believe that. Because even Rab Nosson taught the beautiful concept that even if a person says he doesn't want to serve Hashem, and it's really in his heart of hearts, he wants to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. We know that. He wants to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. Every Jew really wants to serve the Rebbeinu Shalom. And the Pinta Yid. And we saw all the stories. Today's the Askar. We have the Askar for the 6 million in the Shaya, right? And how many Yidden, how many stories were there? People that had no affiliation with Yiddishkeit, and they still gave their lives, and they would never do anything to. Unbelievable. Anyway, look. Sha'az Nightland Arba Minim. Va'agudin ukisharim shloisha minim biyachad. Oh, here we go. So we take the arba minim. Look again, arba, right? We're talking about tzitzis. See how Rav Nosson tells you, he takes together, Rav Nosson's going to show you, okay, well, you have the dalid minim, right? The arba minim, the 4 different species that you take together. How many corners do you have on your tzitzis? 4. Here we go. Okay, here we go. Right? And then we're going to talk about the eyes now again. Here we go. We have the optical lesson again. Here we go. Minin yachad. Shezeh bechinas sholish avos bechinas Yaakov. That's Yaakov Avinu. V'hei meirin la'esrik shu bechinas bas ayin. Wow, look at this. The esrik. So what do? We take the lulav, and we take the hadassim and the aravis, and we bind those 3 together. Again, that's the chut hamishulash. That's why they have to be together, because the 3 have to always be together. The esrig stay separate. You don't bind the esrog together with it, right? You hold the esrog in your other hand and you hold them together, right? That's how it goes, right? And so the esrog is the bas ayin, is the pupil of the eye, which we said is what's the bas ayin is also Yaakov Avinu, right? We said David HaMelech. David HaMelech is the bas ayin, is tefillah, right? She'al yedei zeh nishalmin ha'arba minim. And that's how you can have a complete set. Because if you have three of the species and you don't have the fourth one, you don't have a complete set. It's not going to work. You need to have all the four species together. If you take the four species together, then you have it. Yeah, that's why you have to have also four corners, the tzitzis. And if you have only three corners, is that going to work? That's not going to work, right? So you have to have four. Sheyesh be'em chuliyos. V'chol chuliya hi shloisha krichos. It has to have three. And like we said, it's a kavutza of krichos. It has to have three. It has to always be in a triplicate form. It has to be bound strong. The same way you have the avos. The shalosh avos are together, and of course then you have Yaakov. We have David HaMelech, which is the bas ayin. We said we also have the three colors of the eye, and then we have the bas ayin, right? The three colors of the eye are also connected to the shalosh regalim, right? Remember that? Remember, right? The three colors of the eye is the shalosh regalim, and the bas ayin is David HaMelech, is tefillah, and you can't have the shalosh regalim without tefillah. Right, and you're not going to have tefillah without the shalosh regalim. They're all intertwined, and they have to be intertwined in order to be complete. And that's the lesson that we have here. Now look at the next thing he says now. So we have 39 windings altogether. There are 39 windings. And we have 5 knots that are doubled, right? Kafel, right? Doubled, right? Shehem eser kisharim. That makes 10 knots altogether. V'kulam b'yachad heim oilim arboyim v'teisha. Wow, so now you may have been wondering why Reb Nosson was tying in before the Sfira Sa'omer, right? What was Sfira doing in the teaching of tzitzis? Well, hey, wait a second. He's showing us right now on each one of the corners on your beged you have 49, 39 windings, 10 knots. Altogether 49, and there you have it. Now you have that also. The 49. The kulam yachad oilim arbam v'teisha. Keneged arbam v'teisha yemei ha'omer, which is in line with the arba yemei ha'omer, the 49 days of the Sfira Sa'omer. Shein bechinas milui ha'levana. That's what it means, the completion of the levana. Because we said that what was the whole idea of the levana? The whole idea of the levana, you asked me last time. I looked this up for you, Sasha. You asked, so the whole idea of the levana was what? The whole idea of the levana was what? He said came to the Rabbeinu Shalom, and he said that you can't have two malachim that are mistamshim bekeser. The two malachim can't have one crown. It's not going to work. Two malachim are not going to work. So the question was, and we said, so really, what was the problem with that? What was the problem with that? The problem was this. HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the moon and the sun. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu was so close at that time to the moon and the sun because he just created them. And they knew it. The moon and the sun knew it. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the sun and the moon together. So why did the moon ever have to come to Hashem with any complaint? Why Hashem doesn't know? Hashem didn't know that the two can run together? If he couldn't work together, then he would have made it that way. Elamai, it could work together. So the whole idea was when the moon came to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the moon said, we can't have the two of us together. So Hashem says, what? Leich, and make yourself smaller. Go and make yourself smaller. Why? Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was teaching, he set up in the world the malam and amokim. That the world is lamalam and makim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mekoymai sheloylam eina oylam mekoymai. So the moon, what was the moon saying? Hashem, there's not enough room. There's space. And in the space that we are, it can't work. But Hashem was teaching the moon something else. It's lamalam and amakim. The same way in the Beis Hamikdash, in the Mishkan, it was Lamalam, everyone was able to fit. No problem. It was like an Eretz Yisrael is like the deer skin. It'll expand. It's no problem. There's no makom. There's no makom because we're lamalam in a makom. We're lamalam in a makom. So that was the whole problem, the pegima of the Levana. That was the whole problem that the Levana was saying that there's no makom, there's no place. But really, the Rabbeinu Shalom was teaching the Levana that what? No, it's lamalam in a makom. And because it's lamalam in a makom, there is place. Because there's only confinement and constriction when we're in this world. When we're part of this world, but when we go l'malam in amakim, when we lift ourselves out of the situation, out of the quicksand of this world, the sinking quicksand of this world, when you lift yourself out of that, there's no constriction, there's no confinement. There's expansiveness, there's plenty of room. Does that make sense? So the whole idea of the Sfira Sa'aymer was getting us out of the Mitzrayim. We learned this idea. What's Mitzrayim? Meitzar. Confinement. Stuck. I'm stuck. So the whole idea of the Sfiras Omer, getting out of Mitzrayim, getting that concept out of our heads that I'm stuck, I'm a slave, I'm stuck. I can't get out of this. I'm stuck with these things. No, the whole idea of the Sfira is to free us. The whole idea is freedom. What's freedom? L'malam and amakim. Freedom is l'malam and amakim. I don't have to be confined to the nonsense of the world. I can raise myself up. And how can I do that? I can look at my tzitzis. When I look at my tzitzis, I remember the tachlis. Cheles, Tachlis. I remember the Rabbeinu Shalom. I remember the Yam. I remember the Shemayim. I remember Gan Eden. And then I can know the Kisei HaKavod. What's my connection to the Kisei HaKavod? Where does every neshama come from? Itachas LaKisei HaKavod. That's home for us. That's our home base. The home base is the Kisei HaKavod. Every time you daven Shmoyne Esrei, and you step in Hashem Tzifasai Tiftach, Ufi Yagit Tilasach, you say those words, you're stepping into the Olam Atzilas. You're stepping into the highest world, the Olam where the Kisei HaKavod is. You're standing in that world. Every time. You mamish have a connection to the Kisei HaKavod, the same way HaKadosh Baruch Hu said to Moshe Rabbeinu when he came up to Shemayim and the Malachim said, "Ma Yulad Isha Beinenu, what's this guy doing over here?" What did HaKadosh Baruch Hu say to Moshe Rabbeinu? Grab onto my Kisei HaKavod. So we can do that every time. We can grab onto the Kisei HaKavod. So any questions on this lesson so far?
So good.
So far, so good. Unbelievable.
We grab hold of our tzitzis.
We grab hold of those tzitzis and we look at the tzitzis. Ure'isam oisai. That's what the Torah says. Look at them. Look at them. What's Ure'isam oisai? It means look at them. Pay attention with them. Look at those tzitzis. Why is the Torah telling us to look at them? What else does the Torah tell us to look at? What else does the Torah say to look at? No, I understand, but what else? What else?
The light of the nerot.
No, but that's not the Torah. That's the Chazal taught us that. That's not from the Torah.
All right.
No, of course we have to look at the nerot. No. Sure. We have to look at. We could look at the Pnei Tzaddik. We see the tzaddikim, right? Because it can remind us. It's the same idea. Anytime you look at a tzaddik, you see the emes. Where you see a tzaddik, you see the emes. So what's that? That's like looking at the tzitzis. Because that's the whole idea. You see Torah in the tzaddik. That's the whole idea. It's the whole idea of looking at it. Really falls. And the Torah, the first thing that the Torah says looking at is really tzitzis. What else did the Torah ever talk about looking at? And the first thing you learn, whenever the Torah says something the first time, that's what you learn out from it, right?
Yeah.
But where else does the Torah say to looking at?
Yeah. Tells you a lot of things not to look at.
No, the Torah doesn't say.
Not to look at?
What does the Torah say not to look at? It says don't serve idols and don't do this. It doesn't tell you to look at anything, not to look at anything. Okay. Right? The Torah doesn't, the Torah itself, but the Torah tells us, Ure'isa ma'isa yuschartem es kol mitzvahs Hashem. That's what we're trying to remember, right? We're trying to understand, how can I remember all the mitzvahs? How do I can do all this? Because the tzitzis will take me back to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mekay Moshe Leilam, like we keep learning. And we could say this 1,000,000 times because we got to get this into our heads. The Rebbe says Mekay Moshe Leilam. He is the Makim of the world. He is the address of the world. He is the world. Hashem is the address of the world. Now let's see Beis. Zeh bechinas tzitzis shel pishtan. And that's what we said, you can have tzitzis of pishtan. What's pishtan? Flax, right? What's right? Pishtan, right? Linen, right? Linen. Ki pishtan hu bechinas dinim. We learned this concept. Pishtan is dinim. Remember, David was telling us in the shir, that the pishtan when it grows, they grow individually. They're never bound together. They grow individually. Remember that he told us that? What's his name? David.
Jerome.
David Jerome. He said that this mamash. He thought that the idea that each pishta, each one grows by themselves. There's no connection. There's no connection. It's like in the Rimon, right? The Rimon, right, has 613 seeds, but they're all disconnected. They're all disjointed, right? The same idea, right? They're all disjointed. It's din. And then he says here, Bechinas va'ish Gavriel lovush badim. Va'ish Gavriel lovush badim. Look at this. He says ha'ish Gavriel. Was Gavriel an ish or is the Gavriel a malach?
Malach.
So you see, sometimes it's the HaKadosh Baruch Hu sends into the world malachim, and they look like a person, right? Sometimes people are like malachim. When the malachim came to Avram Avinu, did they look like people? The Torah says they looked like people. Were they people? They weren't people. Rashi says they were malachim mamish, right? They were mamish malachim. They were angels, right? So you see this. Va'ish. Gavriel lovush badim. It's in Yecheskel. Shehu pishtim. Badim is pishtim. When he says it now, so to the Malach Gavriel we know is on the side of din, right? Michael Gavriel, right? Michael is on the right side. Michael is rachamim, is compassion. Gavriel, the Malach Gavriel is the side of din. He's on the left side. The left side. Shehu pishtim. That's again din. That's din. Shehu bechinas kayin shehevi mipri adama. Kayin, right? Going back, it's amazing how Rav Nosson is jumping around. Isn't this wonderful? Look at this. Rav Nosson is tying to the whole Torah. We have Yetzias Mitzrayim. We're talking about the Sholosh Regalim, right? We're talking about, look at this, in one lesson here, right?
The moon.
The moon. We're talking about the Begimas Halavon, and now we're going back over here. Now we're talking about Malachim, Gavriel, right? And now we're talking here about the Kayin that he brought from the Pri Adama. He brought from the Pri Adama Shezeh Zera Pishtan. He brought the Zera Pishtan. He brought these things, the linen. He brought the linen. It's amazing. Today they make these linen things, and they're very expensive, right? They make some kind of linen suits, and they make linen things, right? So maybe Kayin, that's what he was trying to do, right? He thought, wow, this is gewaltig. It's going to be high fashion. It's going to be high fashion. I'm giving you high fashion, Hashem, right? They have to be Melamed Schus. That was the whole idea of Rav Nosson teaching us. You always have to be Melamed Schus because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mekay Mai Shalaylam, right? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows the Makayim of each and every person, right? And He knows their situation, right? So again, Kayin, he brought from the Pri Adama. Shuzera Pishtan. Shehevi Min Agarua. He brought from the lowest of the low. He brought the lowest stuff. He didn't bring the fine stuff. Shera Chayiv L'chol Echad. Showing it as a chayiv. Everyone is chayiv. Everyone is obligated. He brings a chayiv on everyone. Look what he says here. Nimsa pishtin hu bechinas don lekaf chayiv. The whole idea of pishtin is judging someone in an unfavorable way. In an unfavorable way. Not judging them favorably, but in an unfavorable way. That's the whole thing of pishtin. Are we getting in trouble with talk? We're learning here. Okay, they're davening over there. What are we going to do?
Your davening's bothering us.
What? They'll have to daven louder. That's it.
I said their davening is bothering us.
No. Let them daven louder. That's all. We'll have a competition. Right? We'll learn louder, and then they can daven louder. Instead of they'll get up. They both Hashem. You see that? Ayidei mitzvahs tzitzis, through the whole idea of tzitzis, the whole idea of ayidei achud shel tzemer. What do we make our tzitzis out of? We make our tzitzis out of wool. We make our tzitzis out of wool.
But they can be made out of leather.
They could. Hold on a second. We learned back in Halacha Aleph tzitzis that tzitzis is the only thing that you could make together, wool and linen.
Right.
You're allowed to do that if you have techelas. Only if you have techelas, if you have the blue string, if you have the real blue string, not that we have from the Mesorah. Today we figured out what techelas is, perhaps. But the same way, and why is it not everyone agrees with the techelas today? The same way today, they figured out on a giraffe. They figured out where. They were able to figure out on a giraffe where to shech the giraffe. They were able to figure it out. But we're never going to shech the giraffe. We're not going to eat a giraffe. Why? There's no Mesorah. There's no Mesorah. You understand? There's no Mesorah that goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. We lost the Mesorah. We don't have it. So even though we could derive and figure it out, but you have to have a Mesorah that goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu, to Har Sinai, to Kabbalah HaTorah. If it goes back to Kabbalah HaTorah, then you're allowed to perform it. Otherwise, you're not. So even the techelis that we have today, it could very well be the real techelis, but we don't have the Mesorah for it. That's the problem. We don't have the Mesorah for it, and that's why not everybody is obligated to wear the techelis today, because we don't have that Mesorah, and that's really the makar of why everyone is not wearing the techelis today. All right, but those that wear the techelis, kol hakavod to them. Okay. Shu bechinas kisei hakavod. The techelis, the chut shel techelis is like we learned the kisei hakavod. Why? Because you look at the techelis, you remember your tachlis. Remembering the tachlis is connecting back to the Rabbeinu Shalom, connecting back to the kisei hakavod. Bechinas mekoi moi shel olam. Here Rav Nosson tells us again and again, Chaver, we have to remember this. The Rabbeinu Shalom is mekoi moi shel olam. V'al yedei zeh nimtuk gam bechinas hapishtim. Through that you can also fix the din. See, when you have the wool with the tchelas, so then that can be mamtik the din. That can be mamtik, that can sweeten the judgment, that can fix things. Lodines hakol lekav schus, to judge everybody in a favorable way. I'm telling you, it's so complicated today. There's so many situations and trials and tribulations out there. It's unbelievable. I mean, I believe that the internet in general is just destroying and destroying. It's unbelievable what it's doing to Klal Yisrael. It's unbelievable. But that's why I believe that's why when we have our shiurim and we have to put as much kedusha, as much tahara on the internet, we have to be mishtamish with it to fight back. We have to use it to fight back. But this is what it is. Lekav schus. We need more the tzemer. We need more the tchelas to be infused, more tchelas, more tzemer, to be mamtik the din. There's so much din that we have to be mamtik the dinim. Because again, we don't know the makom of each person. We have no idea what they're trying, what their tafkid is in life. Halavai, we should know what our tafkid in life is. Halavai, every one of us should know what our job is here in this world to complete. Halavai. So if I'm having so much trouble to even know what I'm supposed to do in this world, I'm going to try to figure out what someone else is doing. I don't even know what I'm doing. I'm begging the Rebbeinu Shalom to teach me, to tell me what my tafkid is, right? So how am I supposed to ever know what the other person's dealing with? The Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh taught us that it's like a mirror. It's like a mirror. What does it mean it's like a mirror? Anytime you could see something in somebody else, that means you have that same problem. Because if you don't have that problem, you couldn't see it. Mm-hmm. You can only see what the person has if you yourself have that problem. If you don't have the problem, you can't see that problem. This is a teaching of the Baal Shem Tov.
Yeah.
You can't see that. You can't see it. So what does it mean? So really, anytime anyone is looking at somebody else and is not looking at the tzitzis and not remembering that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Mekay Mai Shel Olam and Eina Olam Mekay Mai, right? They're not remembering that. So what are they doing? they're really making themselves guilty. Because when they look at the person and they go, look what he's doing. Oh, look what he did. Look what he did. Wait a second. The Baal Shem Tov taught me that if I saw him do that, that means I have a chelik in that. I have a chelik in that in me. That means I have to fix myself. So if I do that, and then how am I going to fix myself? If I remember my chelik, the tachlis in life, so then I can mamish work on fixing myself. I can work on connecting myself to the Rabbeinu Shalom. And this is really what we're trying to, this is really what Rav Nassim was teaching us all the time. He's just trying to get us to come back to the Rabbeinu Shalom, to judge everybody, to judge everybody in the most favorable way. Today is also my grandmother's yard site. Esther Ruchama Bas Rav Chaim Halevi. Esther Ruchama Bas Rav Chaim Halevi. Oh, she was such a special lady. Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. And my grandfather, who she was named after, is Rav Chaim Halevi. He was a Yid that lived in New York in the 20s and 30s, back then. And he was a guy that we have one picture. We have only one picture of him. He didn't want anyone to take a picture of him. He didn't want anyone to have a picture of him. My mother, one time, when he was going out of she knew he would go out of the house a certain time. He would go out of the house on the side door. He lived in Brooklyn and Brownsville, right? And he would go out of the house. So she stood by the neighbor's door, with a camera, and she got one picture. We have one picture. We have one picture of him. But I'm telling you, he looked, Mamash Yid with a long beard, and he was wearing his black hat. And this, back then, it was, in New York, that wasn't, a common thing to see at all. So, Baruch Hashem, Zchus Yoga and Aleinu. All that we have the holy Reb Nosson, and my grandmother, her whole idea also was always to find good in everybody. That was her whole life. That was the whole thing, always to find good. And she had a hard life. She didn't have my mother. She told me, Baruch Hashem, that when she was a child, there was the deep depression in America, and kids didn't have any milk. They didn't have anything. They didn't have anything nutrition. So she developed a terrible arthritis. Terrible arthritis. And she was never able to open her hands more than this. This is how, when she opened her hand, that's how bad it was. A terrible situation. But she was the happiest person. Unbelievable. She was the happiest person. She figured out how to do yoga. She figured out this thing for the pain. I remember she would take a lemon. She would slice up a lemon, put a lemon on a pan and heat it up. And then she would take the hot lemon and put it on the thing for the pain. Unbelievable. But she was mamish always besimcha. So Baruch Hashem, Zechus Yoga Leinu. Everyone, thank you for listening. Kol Tuv, everybody. And have a Tzaim Kal.